Dog Nation, it is good to be back. As spring rolls on, there are plenty of narratives out there, but I don't think it would be an April Fool's joke to consider this the beginning of a defense that could lead the nation and the SEC. As always, I'm Cheeto, and with me is my co-host Keegan, and welcome back to another episode of Dogs Off the Leash.
Hey, it's good to be back, bro.
How you been?
Knock on wood. I haven't been affected by the pollen. It's so year to year with me. I know some people, like, every year, pollen's got their number. This year, so far, so good. You know, it's like at the end of a scary movie when the villain ends up going down. It's like, you don't want to jinx it now, but I'm feeling pretty good about it. But I know you just went on a whole international tour and got to see Athens, freaking Greece, bro. How was that? And how was the overall just trip away from the mainland, exploring some good stuff with some quality people?
Yeah, man, it was a good trip. I haven't done a lot of international travel since, early 2000s, mid 2000s. So I did a lot of travel when I was young. So this was the first time out of the country, excluding Puerto Rico since then. But Athens was great, both Athens, Greece, and then we went to Paros, which was really cool. We did the Olympic Stadium. We went to the Acropolis and saw the Parthenon. And then we also went to Mount Lycabettus, which is like this really amazing view over the top of the city. You watch the sun go down and you see the entire city of Athens light up. So, you know,
that's really cool.
Us being from or going to school at UGA, you know, that's the Athens we know and love, and obviously it holds a special place in our hearts. But if you ever get a chance to go to Athens, Greece, I definitely suggest you take that trip.
Okay, so for the record, now I know like Athens, Greece holds a international level of esteem. There's a lot of great history related to Greek culture. The food is amazing, but like arches for arches, who does it better? Athens, Georgia, or Athens, Greece? Just on the arches alone, like, are we in the running, or is it just like, are we just copycats when it all comes down to it?
Arches alone, I mean, you got to give it to the original, the OG. No disrespect, because my favorite arches are in Athens, Georgia. Athens, Georgia definitely has better bars, but the food is definitely top tier in Greece. And then I thought they were the graffiti capital of the world. They're not, but they're actually pretty high up on the list. They take their graffiti over there very seriously. So
that's cool.
European city, as you would expect, or maybe not expect, but a really good trip, man. I learned a lot. I had a blast.
Man, that's awesome. Well, love to hear it. There were some really awesome pictures. But speaking of learning a lot, there are a lot of new faces on the scene. Some older ones, some younger ones, but ones who have not quite been indoctrinated to the first waves of Kirby Smart. And it's spring football, and there's a standard that's set every year, and it starts at the beginning of the season. And a lot of these guys are finding out in real time what that's all about. And I know most recently a viral moment, Amaris Williams and Elias Williams both were mentioned heavily on the megaphone by a caught on video like audio tidbit. You guys probably know what I'm talking about. Anyway, there's been a lot of action going on behind the scenes, and we're hearing a lot of the information. But Cheeto, anything in particular you'd like to start off and focus on, and where do you want to go from here?
Yeah, first of all, it seems like this year we're going to be heavily reliant or looking to players with the last name Williams, whether it's Amaris Williams, Elias Williams, Justin Williams at linebackers. So a lot of Williams, even Gentry Williams from Oklahoma, the corner. He had his welcome to Georgia moment, as most players who are normally freshmen probably have. This one's a transfer guy in. But I feel like with the addition of these transfer portal guys, and maybe this talk will pick up, I really feel like this UGA defense has a chance to be top 3 to top 5 in the country. I really, really believe that. When you look at the returning production, you look at the talent level at the D-line, the linebacker, and the secondary position. Mind you, our total defense last year for that side of the ball was top 10 in the country. And we finished with 20 sacks, right? You add the addition of Coach Larry Knight. If we can get a plus 10 number as far as the 2025 sack numbers for 2026, I think this defense will have no problem getting into that elite status, that rarefied air, right? And Keegan, I don't know if you have a favorite as far as the additions to this defense, but think about the edge players that we're going to have this year. We already talked about Amaris Williams. You have Gabe coming back. He's injured during the spring, so he'll get a little time to rest, and there'll be other players that get to fill his spot and get some more reps. Q Johnson was huge last year. Isaiah Gibson, he's not a familiar name yet, but should be as time goes on. In the secondary, DeMello Jones, Ellis Robinson come back. Ellis Robinson is going to be an impact player along with KJ. You've got Khalil Barnes coming in to solidify that safety position from Clemson. Don't forget Kyron Jones, Zion Branch. I already mentioned Gentry Williams and others. At the linebacker position, you have Raylan Wilson coming back. Obviously, C.J. Allen hurts a little bit, but Justin Williams slides right into that middle linebacker position ideally. Chris Cole, who's an impact player, and then Zayden Walker, who's also banged up this spring, but we know what he's capable of. And then obviously the all-important position at the defensive line. If Jordan Hall can be healthy, we are going to have a mammoth and experienced defensive line, right? Everybody's talking about Elijah Griffin right now, but let's not forget Jordan Hall is meant to this front seven, especially that D-line unit. Xavier McLeod has shown that he belongs in the SEC and has contributed in a big way, as well as Nnamdi Ajiboko and Joseph Jonah Ajanye. So when you start to think about these names and the youth that we had last year and giving them an opportunity to grow to that next level, another year of development in the Kirby defense, Glenn Schumann, our D-line coach, our secondary coaches, I think that means Georgia is trending up. But how are you feeling about this defense, and what's your favorite story so far that you've heard as far as the spring buzz and the chatter that we're hearing around the Athens area?
Okay, so leading into this podcast, Cheeto, I was just thinking about how every room is just so deep and how it feels like even though supposedly depth isn't an issue, and maybe they just mean like the overall like emergency room depth, but there's a lot of talent on this team, and you kind of start to wonder how do they manage it since there isn't a spring portal now, and besides just having a constant rotation, which sometimes works well at certain positions when everybody can hold that watermark, how do they handle that? Well, just by looking at the roster, something that has been, I think, less so reported on is who gets the red shirt. And I think the red shirt is actually a great tool that this university has used at a increasingly more efficient level in a way to do a little bit of roster management. And I would love to ask Kirby or some of these players even, or, you know, try to actually get some deeper information as to why some do and some don't, because it doesn't necessarily make consistent sense, but I do think there's some strategy that is involved. For instance, so I found it very interesting that like Talon Taylor is actually a redshirt freshman. Okay. And CJ Wiley, for instance, didn't take the red shirt. He's actually a sophomore. And if you look just basically at each position group, each room, you'll see, in essence, a kind of stacking, a tiering of guys to where one will take the red shirt, one won't. And I think it's done pretty much on purpose because across the board, there seems to be a little bit of mixing and matching with that. So that's just something I think that is worthy of note, because I think myself, you, Cheeto, and fans included, we're wondering, like, how do they manage it? And I think that something that they do to go about it is using the red shirt. So yeah, I think it's kind of cool how they do that.
No, for sure. It's an effective tool that coaches use when managing the roster, right? Sometimes it's about we have a necessity for a player, right, where you have to have somebody young come in, especially in this day and age. Or like last year, Georgia had a lot of first and second year players that had to contribute because we needed that. In the situation with Talon Taylor, he was playing but got hurt his shoulder in the Alabama game.
Right.
So he was done for the season. So that's why he had that red shirt. But
that makes
it's
sense.
It's definitely a useful tool to use, and Kirby does a good job of managing a roster as well as anybody in the country. So, but while we're on the offense, I want to talk to you about that, because I think as Georgia fans, we know what we're going to expect from a Georgia defense, even in a down year, right? We finished top 10 in total defense last year. Glenn Schumann had some good moments, some bad moments. It wasn't the 2021 or 2022 defenses, but we were still very, very talented across the board, even with the young guys. As evidence is the draft that's coming up, we're going to see several first-rounders, hopefully at least 2 from this Georgia defense. But offensively, So let me go ahead and knock out the running back room and the tight end room just to save some time, because both of those rooms are stacked. And both of those rooms are going to be an absolute strength for this Georgia offense moving forward. And I think it will be incumbent on Mike Bobo and his scheme and how aggressive and explosive he wants to be. I'm not here to bag on Bobo today. We got plenty of time to do that before the season gets here. But for me, Keegan, I'm looking at the offensive line and the wide receiver room, starting with the O-line, because I think it's going to end up being a strength of this team. My only question right now, and Keegan, I would pose it to you, who do you think could potentially be the starter, or who do you think are some good candidates, or what are you hearing at the left guard position? That seems to me to be the only position that there's a question mark right now, right? At left tackle, Ernest Green's going to hold that down. They decided to move him back over. We know he's going to be a contributor. He's going to go to the NFL after this season. Bobo, once he gets past his injury, he's done for the spring, hoping to be back fall camp. He had a great year last year at center, and we know Malachi Tolliver from Cartersville is a great backup if we need that. At the right guard position, a freshman last year who showed flashes early on, Glover. Dontrell, I believe is his first name. I expect him to come back bigger, stronger, and better suited mentally to play offensive line, especially with Rosher, the new offensive line coach, who really goes out of his way to teach offensive linemen how to play the nuances of the game that you need at the NFL level. And then we all know Gaston is going to be a future first-round pick who's going to hold down right tackle. So I feel really good about our offensive line. But Keegan, left guard's my only question. How are you feeling about that one position?
Well, as far as guard goes in general, it can really make or break your team. Now, everyone gets caught up and focused on the left tackle. For most people, it's your blind side, and when shit goes wrong, it's usually on Sports Center when that player didn't do his job. But at the same time, the run game is really going to be predicated on your inside guard. But yeah, it's really about the combination. So I think we're not in practice, so whoever is working together best in tandem with, I guess,
Ernest Green.
Do we have Ernest Green? For sure, Ernest Green?
That seems to make sense, and that seems to follow what people are talking about.
Okay. Yeah, so whoever's working best with Ernest Green, if we find that out, that's the guy. But dudes I think would just make a great guard prospect-wise to plug in to practice if I'm running it. I think Oboko is someone that I'm looking at. And then I don't know where Ja Jackson plays into all of this. I don't necessarily see him with the body type as much as a guard necessarily, but, I mean, maybe you put him in because I think he's more built for, like, the ultimate left tackle if he's ready. And then maybe you move Ernest Green down if that is the case. But I don't know. I just think it's dependent on the combination.
So I posed the question. I posed the question intentionally, right? Because all we have now is chatter and stories and reports, right? But as fans, the best part about spring is trying to piece together what that's going to look like. You know what I mean? We know that there are going to be some contributors on the offensive line, especially the guys from last year. Ja Jackson's one of these guys that's getting a ton of buzz. Really, he's been getting a ton of buzz for a while now because he's a 6'10", 6'11" basketball player whose skill set can translate, but he doesn't have the experience. So you got a backup you got a backup tackle right there. Ajboko, who you're talking about, another backup tackle, but he's young. We're not going to expect him to contribute right away. The names also that we're hearing a lot of buzz, Zyke Helton, right? An interior lineman who's been talked about very highly. He has the potential to be at that left guard position. Mason Short's also getting some buzz. He's in his second year. So you never know how somebody's going to develop. Sometimes they're a year early. Sometimes it takes longer. Sometimes it's just the depth chart. And in these two guys' cases who are also going to maybe contribute to left guard, Michael Uini and Daniel Calhoun. You remember last year, a lot of people thought Daniel Calhoun was going to be the right guard position. Now he's going to have another opportunity to start on this line at the left guard position. So just remember those names as we continue to go through spring, as we gear up for the fall. Uini, Calhoun, Mason Short, and Zyke Helton. There has been buzz about these players. There's an opening at left guard. So count on that, right? So, and then overall, the offensive line is going to be a strength because we're 10, maybe 11, 12 deep on this offensive line. So that's why I posed that question there.
Okay, yeah. So I think it's a good problem to have because it's kind of like when you go to the fridge and you got like three things and you're like, shit, what am I going to eat out of these three things? Like, oh, I don't know. Is it going to be the tomato? Is it going to be the tuna can in the pantry, the bag of chips? Versus you just got a full fridge stocked. You went to Kroger, Ingles, Publix, Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, the local butcher, like everything in the fridge is packed to the wazoo, and you don't know what you're going to eat. And I feel like that's the position Georgia's in with offensive line, is that they have so much talent that they could rotate.
That's the best part.
But again,
and you know the winner, the best player is going to play. So really, you're not worried, but it's fun to try to see who's going to be the starter. You know what I mean?
How I mentioned earlier, using the red shirt, I probably should have led with the tight end room, because I don't think there's a room that we do it better with, because that room is so competitive. Me, myself, I want to see all these guys ball out. I want to have a package where we are 5 wide with every single one of these tight ends. Why not? I think they're capable. They really are a hybrid blend. The tight end position has changed a lot. Back in the day, you had one Tony Gonzalez, right? You had one Antonio Gates. You had one or two of these guys that were really just pure athletes, bigger bodied dudes that probably could be playing the edge position or be, like a power forward in basketball or something like that. But Lawson Lucky is your senior. So I didn't realize that. I guess maybe I thought he was a junior. It's like he's grown up on me all so quick or whatnot. But Lawson Lucky is your senior. And your redshirt sophomore, mind you, is Jaden Riddell. Your pure sophomore, if you will, is Elias Williams. And I don't know if this is how they're doing it. I guess it would make sense, of course, with the injuries, but maybe for a guy maybe a pure prospect like Elias Williams, you don't give him the red shirt so frequently. And that seems to be kind of the trend in the position rooms. But then you got Caden Prothro as the freshman, and then the red shirt freshman who just got injured last year, Ethan Barbour. So that's kind of how it breaks down, with Lawson Lucky being the senior and those tiers that I just mentioned. So we'll see how it shakes out, but all of them have good blocking utility, good pass catching utility. I myself, no disrespect to Jaden Riddell, but he's just so bulky in a photo. I figured maybe he's more the slower, bulkier, kind of strong type of dude, which is fine. We need that. But come to find out, I forget which teammate it was. I think it was Lawson Lucky, but he said he can fly, and he actually shouted out Jaden Riddell, saying he's had one of the best off seasons of anyone on the whole team. So, I mean, take your pick, Cheeto. Out of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys that are all true ballers, I mean, is there anything you're leaning into at the tight end position?
Yeah, man. Again, I wanted to, for the sake of time, just call that room stacked and ready to go, but I didn't mean to disrespect any of these players. I'm really serious. This might be one of the best tight end rooms that we've had at Georgia, and we've had some great tight ends. Now, Lawson Lucky, he is the leader of this room, right? He is our receiving tight end. Elias Williams is a beast. He's going to be our red zone guy. He is a freak. Think Darnell Washington type size. He's that type of player. And I've said this before, and it's a shame only because he's buried in this depth chart, but Jaden Riddell is the closest thing to Brock Bowers I think that we've seen. This guy has elite acceleration. His ball skills, his 50-50 catching is nuts. It wasn't high school, and I know it's only gotten better. We are going to have to find a way to get this guy involved into this passing game. And if there's one thing Bobo is good at, it's his efficiency. It's his red zone scheming. It's his use of tight ends. So it's going to be Lawson Lucky, Elias Williams, Riddell, and Ethan Barbour, who's more of a Swiss Army knife, who's going to be really big at the end of the line of scrimmage, blocking, helping us in the run game and that type of thing. No disrespect to the younger tight ends behind them, but we are 4 deep and super serious in the tight end room. That should be our bread and butter. We should be terrorizing linebackers week in and week out, and I'm really excited about this room. Even with injuries, major injuries to that room, we will still have one of the best tight end rooms in the country. No doubt about it. That's a serious room we got going on. So, and then on top of that, the running back room is also stacked. For the sake of time, we don't need to elaborate quite on that right now, maybe until towards the fall. Quarterback room, same way. We know Gunnar Stockton is coming back. We hope that he's going to improve on his almost Heisman campaign. I think he finished, 7, 8, whatever it was. We need that vertical threat to improve. But also we want to see Ryan Puglisi. We want to see the type of progression that he's made as a quarterback. I think he's got a much better arm than Gunner right now, so he needs to be ready as the number 2. But Keegan, we got to talk about this wide receiver room just one more time, because that's really the last question on this entire team, in my opinion, right? We've talked Isaiah Canyon, London Humphreys, but we are going to need one of two of Talon Taylor or CJ Wiley, I think, to really be the explosive team offensively that we want to be. There's been a lot of buzz about Talon Taylor so far. CJ Wiley deserves as much buzz, whether or not he's getting it. What are you hearing about the wide receiver room? What are you expecting from this wide receiver room this year? Me personally, I think we take a step back. No disrespect to these guys, but talent-wise, I think that's where we are right now, unless somebody takes a huge step this spring leading into this fall.
Well, the biggest question mark, all things included, just looking at the guys we have, and we have a lot of competitive dudes, but we don't necessarily have the size that we had last year. And, like, I think route running, potentially catching, we maybe get a little bit better, but as far as, like, blocking goes from dudes like Dylan Bell and Colby Young, those are big-bodied, physical wide receivers that you're just not going to be able to necessarily replace from this room exactly. But the thing is, we know that Caden Prothro may come in and kind of be the hybrid dude. So maybe he makes up for some of that, which then we have less to worry about there and kind of can enjoy the fruits of the uniqueness of this room, which is a lot of more speedy guys that can be, not necessarily one Zachariah Branch, but now we have more threats for those kind of quick underneath passes. So I think there's ways that we can exploit that. And guys I'm curious about, I hear you. I definitely think, face value, I think that is probably the truest headline is, who between Talon Taylor and CJ Wiley is going to make that impact. But guys kind of right behind them that could step into that role just in case they don't, or could play a developmental piece or a rotational piece this year, are guys like Craig Dandridge, the freshman, who's getting a lot of buzz right now. Jeremy Bell, who is a redshirt sophomore, 3rd year with the team. It seems like every year in the spring he's basically the MVP of a practice or two, and that's, that they call him Jeremy Flight Bell, so he's somebody to watch, maybe popping in there. Thomas Blackshear is a guy that a lot of fans and media people are hype on. And then, or Sokovie White-Helton is a dude who I actually really expect to take that next step and can be really just someone who's reliable. If you can rely on Isaiah Canyon, you can rely on Sokovie White. You got London Humphreys right there. And then you got the hybrid dude, Elias Williams or Caden Prothro. That can be all you need right there. So while we do have a ton of guys I'm excited for, a lot of competition, maybe one of these newcomers pops in there and surprises us, that would be awesome. Or, CJ Wiley and Talon Taylor might ball out. I think this room, like others, has an abundance of riches, but outside of London Humphreys, this is really the youngest room. So I think it will remain a question mark until probably about the first month of the season. Cheeto, is there anything that pops out from this group outside of the known commodities? Like who of those guys that I named that I'm kind of most curious about, kind of the second tier question mark guys, are you most excited about?
I think the room as a whole is the biggest question mark for the 2026 Georgia football team. I think that room, I think we can win an SEC championship without great production from that room, but can we win a playoff game? Can we win a national championship title? We can't without that room really being a part of the equation, right? And I'd love to talk more about the schedule, but I think the run game, your quarterback play, and your defense is enough with this schedule that Georgia has in 2026 to get back to the SEC championship game. Now, if we face an offensive juggernaut, say LSU pops off the screen or Ole Miss takes a step forward or maintains their offense, then if we get into a shootout situation, we may struggle a bit. But other than that, that's how talented the rest of this team is. So if the wide receiver room can just be serviceable or explosive at times, we're going to be a really, really tough team to beat. And Keegan, I want to talk to you about the schedule. This is also going to start coming into a little bit more focus as people start making their predictions, Phil Steele, all that stuff heading towards the fall. But what are your initial thoughts on this schedule, and what do you think Georgia can do, especially given that this is a little bit different? We've eliminated the divisions, but also they've gone to the 9 SEC game schedule, if I'm not mistaken. How are you feeling about this year's schedule?
Okay, so at the beginning of the season, we open it up versus Tennessee State. How you feeling about that?
Yeah, I think the first 2 games are cupcakes, easy dubs, leading into Arkansas, first somewhat test.
Yeah, and for a somewhat test on the road, that draw is probably about as good as it could get.
Absolutely.
Going into it, yeah.
They've got a good quarterback. I think he's still there, but you're not really scared of if all the road teams to get, you get Arkansas. I'll take that.
Right, and then out of all the teams that you got to face in the SEC, to get one at home, you want your more tough teams at home. We play.
I would say, looking at the schedule, Oklahoma is definitely going to be up there, but like you said, you get them at home. I'm not marking that one as an immediate W right now, but as a dog fan or 2 teams that are close to the same talent level, you want that game at home 10 times out of 10.
For sure, and I think they're more of a challenge this year than others, and just as far as teams kind of on the rise, trending up going into this season, I think them and Ole Miss are really the only teams I see just obviously trending upwards, or at least kind of keeping a high level. Every other team, maybe one of these teams surprises us, but as far as just like if I had to bet my money on a tough game for Georgia, high level competition, I say Ole Miss and Oklahoma. Everybody else, I mean, sure, I know there's going to be other tough games than just those 2, but guarantees, I think those 2, Oklahoma at home. Then you got Vanderbilt, which will be the Jared Curtis game. That will probably get talked about way too much, so maybe we'll put that on ice a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. I think the game at Ole Miss, like you're saying, is one of the tough games. The way it's gone in recent years, the home team has won. Ole Miss comes to Georgia, we beat the crap out of them. Georgia goes to Ole Miss, we lose to them. Mind you, they had Jackson Dart. They come back with Chambliss, we beat them in a shootout. So Chambliss has another year of eligibility, so going to Ole Miss will not be easy. That one's a 50-50 game for me. Vandy at home, I think that's a dub. No disrespect to Jared Curtis, I think he's going to have a great career. But Vandy just had a Hall of Fame year by their standards, right? And they're losing that. They're losing Pavia. So, and you're coming here. It's not at Nashville. Give me the Dogs.
And then at Alabama.
Yeah, at Alabama's going to be tricky because the last time we played Alabama, we beat them in the SEC championship, but they beat us at home. I think the kind of the mystique of Alabama is wearing off a little bit. Really, the whole SEC as a conference, because we haven't won a national championship in a few years now, but Alabama hasn't won an SEC championship in just about as long, right? So unless their quarterback, and I forget his name, maybe it's Russell or something like that, unless he is like the next all-world player, they still have Ryan Williams, the wide receiver. I think he's still 17 years old. But I think the mystique of Alabama is washing off just a little bit. So I like Georgia in that game, but I'm not going to call that one a W right now.
Yeah, for Alabama, it's between the quarterback that followed from Washington, the kind of dual threat guy, I'm slipping on his name, and then Keelan Russell, the highly touted guy. But with that being said, Alabama's team could take a step forward. It probably will be made or broken based on the quarterback position. And I actually think Auburn and Florida could be surprisingly better this year. I don't necessarily love their coaches, but I don't hate the hires in terms of just being pretty solid hires on paper. I think Florida going out and getting John Sumrall just from acting the act or walking the walk, talking the talk, he definitely checks out there. And then Auburn getting the dude from South Florida who, by all accounts, overachieved there, built their program up to be a relevant threat to the other major schools, and had some like notable upsets in the last few years. I think both of those guys are good hires. So, I mean, either one of those programs could do okay. I think it's really more about like what you walk into and then a little bit of luck. If my like assertions are right that they're both really quality. So I don't know. Out of those two teams, who has the better season just looking at them now, Cheeto, Auburn or Florida?
Florida, in my opinion. Auburn, It's going to take them a little while to get going. I think they did have a good hire, but it's going to take some time. And we really don't lose to Auburn at home unless they really are one of those top contending teams in the SEC, and they're not that. They lost Amaris Williams in the portal to UGA, and then they lost Coleman to Texas, right? And we'll have a conversation about Texas later. So I don't think Auburn is going to be as good as they were last year. Last year was the best chance that they've had in a while to beat Georgia. So not really scared of them. I'm marking that one as a W on the schedule. Now, Florida. Florida is a hotbed for recruits. John Summerall is a hell of a coach. And then Aaron Philo, who transferred from Georgia Tech with him. That boy can sling a football. It is not going to take very long for Florida to get to where they want to be as far as SEC conversations, at least, maybe not contention. But I favor Georgia in this game only because this year it's in Atlanta versus down in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
So a little bit more red and black. So for the time being, I take Georgia over Florida in 2026, but that's not going to be a gimme come 2027 and beyond. They're going to be good very quickly, very, very quickly, as much as I hate saying that.
Well, if John Summerall were playing the part in a movie, I hate to say he plays the part pretty good. So I give him credit where credit's due, at least in that regard. But yeah, I think Auburn and Florida are both teams that are going to be highly built by the portal. And we're seeing a trend right now where a coach gets hired and then he brings in not just some coaching staff, but he'll bring in 10, 15 players. You saw it most notably with Indiana recently, but you've seen it with Deion Sanders in Colorado. I mean, the list goes on and on. But Auburn's going to have a ton of the best of whatever, the University of South Florida had. I think, was it Tulane will be bringing in some dudes with John Summerall. So that is an interesting factor and a little bit of different flavor. So it's not like these guys just have to scramble completely looking for dudes. They're bringing who they got with them there. So I think going to Ole Miss that following week after those two games is arguably the biggest challenge we've had in years, maybe since the last time we went to Ole Miss. And this year we don't play Texas, who honestly, out of the last few years, if you had to play them, this would be the hardest, toughest, worst year to probably do it. I think Ole Miss is the biggest test. Are you in concurrence there, Cheeto?
Yeah, I agree. That one is the most toss-up game on our schedule. And again, just because of the way it's gone the past few years, back and forth, home team winning, Champa's coming back. That one's 50-50. And even to wrap up the schedule, Missouri's another tough team that always plays us well. I'm not sure what type of returning production that they have. I'm going to leave that one open. Not going to call it a win or a loss right now just because I respect that program and what they've done there. At South Carolina, I know they have their quarterback and I think a couple of their defensive players if they haven't transferred out. But I think that one is going to be a W as of right now. Carolina did not have the season that they wanted last year. There is talent there. I'm just not scared of it. And then Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech, we talked about Aaron Philo leaving. They lost Buckner Faulkner to Florida as well. Those are the reasons that I was scared of Georgia Tech, all went to Florida. So when I say Florida is going to be good very quickly, it's because of the good things Georgia Tech was doing. They just got stripped of all of it, and that's the portal. It gives and it taketh away. So Georgia Tech, and it's also in Athens, so I've got that one as a win. So not an easy schedule, but as a Georgia team that's going to be 1 year older, I love that schedule. And as you mentioned, no Texas, no LSU, no Texas A&M. And as we sit here today, I think Georgia and Texas are going to meet in the SEC championship game again next year. Texas is going to be the real deal. Unfortunately for Texas, Georgia has had their number, but you not only pick up Cam Coleman, but you pick up a defensive coordinator who we know very, very, very well in Georgia. And I think those two, along with the money that they throw at recruits and the retention and the portal, Texas is going to be the real deal this year. And then we'll see what LSU is going to be. So as far as the schedule, I think Georgia's going to have a good year just because of how things broke this year. So that's kind of how I'm feeling. Just wanted to touch on that before everybody else hops on the 2026 schedule.
Yeah, and I know it's not SEC East, SEC West right now, but like that's still a little bit how I see things. So Texas actually plays Tennessee at Tennessee, and they play Florida at home. So they kind of are playing some familiar foes that Georgia is used to playing, and we'll see if the SEC East, the old school SEC East gauntlet, has any way of thwarting Texas's path. Because I mean,
Good luck.
Tennessee, that'll be a good one. Going to Neyland towards the beginning of the season, big test. They have.
I'll tell you right now,
Arch
Manning's about to have a Heisman campaign, like a legit one, a legit Heisman campaign this year. Just bookmark that right now. I'm telling you.
I received that. I agree. I glanced over the fact that they start the season off Texas against Ohio State, then they have a cupcake game, and then they play Tennessee. So they're coming in hot and heavy to start the season. And I guess they play Texas State, and then they play Ohio State. Then they have a cupcake game, and then they play Tennessee. So, hey, that'll be a test for sure. No doubt about it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So a lot to talk about. Just wanted to touch base with you guys and update kind of what we're hearing through the spring, what we can kind of project from different units, what the schedule is going to look like. And as it stands right now, the stars are starting to align just a little bit for UGA football. There's a long way to go until the kickoff of the season, but here we are, and that's what things look like right now. Keegan, the NBA regular season is coming down to a close. The playoffs are starting to pick up some steam as far as the chatter. Teams are starting to get their seeds. I wanted to give you a little second to give a little shout out to the Hawks, who have kind of reinvented themselves. No disrespect to the Trae Young fans out there, but I think the Hawks did the right thing in letting him go and have kind of put their eggs in a different basket. Mainly, is it Jalen Johnson, who has just been playing out of his mind. The other guy who won the defensive award last year. Show some love to the Hawks. How are things going over there in the Atlanta land?
Things are going great, and I think it has less to do about Trae Young and just more to do about the Hawks going in one cohesive direction. With Trae Young, they could have built a team around him in a much better fashion, but they kind of whiffed on backup point guard Kobe Bluffkin, A.J. Griffin, several other guys just didn't meet the mark, and they had many years of drafts where they really just didn't capitalize despite having good positioning with the draft. So that, and then just not building the team enough around Trae Young in a way that was going to work with him, it just wasn't going to work. So now they are more defensive oriented. They have a veteran presence in C.J. McCollum, able to knock down shots. They're doing all the things that you would want a basketball team to do to make a championship run. They're showing up in the right moments. The biggest thing for me as a Hawks fan is, will they meet the moment? But right now they're on a historic tear. You mentioned it, Jalen Johnson, maybe only like the Joker, Jokic, can't say his name right. He's the only guy with comparable numbers to Jalen Johnson. His are a little bit better, but still, he's in rarefied air right now, and the Hawks are just doing everything right. So currently they're fifth. They play Cleveland twice, who is positioned above them, and they're 4 games ahead. So there's a little bit of wiggle room and a chance to make a jump, and I think there's like maybe, 6-7 games left in the NBA season. So Hawks are doing everything at the right time. They have a great young core, built around athleticism, built around defense, and the shooting is there. And a lot of the question marks and biggest criticisms that this team was facing, mainly and namely about Zach Risache, he's taken a developmental step up. Quinn Snyder showed great patience with him. So, dude, Hawks are living in hog heaven right now, and things are just clicking on all cylinders. But we have been burned. We have been traumatized. So I just want to see them meet the moment. But, yeah, things look great right now. And if they can finish strong, then it'll be a historic close to what was a question mark season. We didn't even know if we were going to be in a play-in position, and now we're looking at potentially 4th place if we can somehow jump the Cavaliers. So, yeah, things are good.
Yeah, sitting at 5th currently. And I think back to the draft with both Luka and Trae and how I begged the Hawks not to make that swap, and I had a lot of Hawks fans trying to convince me that Trae was better than Luka, which seems silly now, but at the time it did happen. But speaking of Luka Doncic, they actually just beat the Cleveland Cavaliers last night. Luka dropped another 40-piece. Luka is doing things offensively for this Lakers team that hasn't been done since Michael Jeffrey Jordan did it. He has been on a blistering tear. The Lakers have clinched the playoffs with their 50th win. They are looking to hold on to the 3 seed and are trying to see who they will face in the first round. This Laker team was not very good. I went to Los Angeles to watch this team. Right after the All-Star break, Boston Celtics absolutely destroyed them. But since then, they have figured out how to play with Austin Reeves, LeBron, and Luka, and play some defense along with that. So there's a lot of chatter about Luka being the potential MVP. And in my opinion, I think he's done enough to warrant heavy consideration. Nothing against what SGA's been doing, even though he needs 23 free throws a night to do it. I know Victor Wembanyama's looking at as being one of the faces of the league, but for his defense, you win Defensive Player of the Year. They're trying to change the criteria of the MVP award, which just seems silly because when Steve Nash won it, when James Harden won it, we weren't talking about defense. So just wanted to shout out Luka for what he's playing. If you've watched basketball long enough, you can tell when there's a changing of the guard or there's an ascension and somebody is now the best player in the league. Luka is knocking on the door of being the best player in the NBA, at least from an offensive perspective. Wemby is a freak of nature. You're always going to make noise like that, right? But Luka's doing some otherworldly stuff, and I'm really excited to see the NBA playoffs and see if the Lakers can make some noise past the first round, second round, Western Conference Finals, what have you. So it's good to be an NBA fan right now, and the Lakers are just killing it.
I'd say current era rankings, maybe you got Joker 1, and then maybe in no particular order, you got SGA, Anthony Edwards, Luka, Jalen Johnson, and then maybe one of the Boston players, either Tatum or Brown, depending on who's having the better season. I don't know really where they're at this year because I haven't been close enough attention. Is there anybody in that short list that you'd add to the kind of just newest all-star, make the cover of the video game level player?
No, that's everybody.
That's about it. Yeah, that's about it. But see, and I will say this, I do think that historically, the right pick overall, you got to go Luka. But as a Hawks fan, you kind of get to smile and say both teams fucked up that situation because neither one of them built around the player, and that honestly is what makes a good team. And it just kind of goes to show who probably won that whole draft is the team that maybe they got a little bit lesser of a player, but they built in a cohesive manner that actually fit a strategy that was had some long-term thinking attached to it. So I know Dallas can't brag to me. So I mean, I hear what you're saying as a rented Lakers fan at the moment, but I don't want, only Dallas fans could really talk shit, and at the same time they don't got nothing to say because they really dropped the bag on their trade.
Well, to be fair, I've only been a LeBron fan, so wherever LeBron's been, I've supported that team. And I feel like the whole league can probably have a few words for the Hawks front office because you don't trade a Hall of Famer for an undersized guard. It was true then, nope. It's true now. But I digress. We'll see how Trey finishes his career, and we'll see how Luka finishes his career, and then in 5 or 10 years we'll revisit the conversation and see how silly it sounds then. But other than that, it's going to be fun NBA playoff run, and I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I'm big fans of both of those guys, and I'm glad that the Hawks are officially making smarter moves. Hawks and the Falcons, both Atlanta teams that really consistently in the last 10, 15 years have not made the best consistent front office moves. Now they are really cooking with gas, cooking with Crisco. So love to see that. Georgia is, 2 weeks away from spring football just about. So
it's getting close to that 2-week mark. So more stories will come out, more information, hopefully nothing driving related. Keegan, as we always do, we'll hop back on here and make sure that we update you guys on any big stories that come out or any movement across the league as we head into spring, and then a little dead period in summer before we start to talk about fall camp. As always, guys, we appreciate you tapping in with us. Keegan, always appreciate you, man. Enjoy this playoff run. It's nice to be a fan of a team or player that gets to try to go make some history, and it's really one of the best times of the year, so looking forward to it. Make sure you guys check us out wherever you get your podcasts, whether that is Spotify, whether it's Apple, or wherever you may happen to get your podcasts. And as always, guys, you know what it is.
Off the league.